Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Today we are diving into the book How to Work with Stupid People. As an executive coach, I see leaders absolutely struggle with maintaining their professional composure in what we can really only describe as highly toxic environments. When you're trying to manage teams, hit deadlines, and juggle high-stakes projects, the sheer friction caused by difficult colleagues drains your energy faster than literally anything else. So this explainer is going to be your strategic toolkit for navigating those exact situations. We're going to give you the frameworks to turn pure irritation into tactical influence and real executive power. Listen to this quote from the book. Ever sat in a meeting wondering how the people running the show managed to get dressed that morning? Right? That perfectly validates that deep, visceral frustration we all feel when we're just surrounded by baffling incompetence. You are definitely not alone in feeling this way. In this explainer, we're going to completely decode that exact workplace madness. The author, JS Paxton, brings 30 years of corporate experience in healthcare and marketing straight to the table. And he's crafted a practical, no-nonsense manual for high performers, the people who are just trying to get things done, hit their numbers, and drive value without losing their minds in the process.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Part 1. The Corporate Madhouse.
Before we can actually start fixing the impact these difficult colleagues have on our careers, we have to accurately diagnose the root of this workplace incompetence instead of just, venting about it at the water cooler. The reality of what we casually call stupidity is actually quite different from what you might expect. It's almost never a literal lack of intelligence. Let me put on my executive coach hat for just a second. I constantly see leaders misdiagnose fear as sheer stupidity. In reality, people act irrationally because they're operating from chronic stress, they're heavily driven by fear and fragile egos, or they're just relying on poor mental habits they've developed over years of bad management. So the term stupid is really a communication and psychology problem. For any leader, making this executive reframe, seeing baffling behavior as a psychological puzzle rather than a direct personal attack, is absolutely the very first step in gaining true strategic control of your environment and your own emotional response.
That brings us to Section 2, Species of Workplace Dysfunction.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how Paxton introduces the concept of treating your difficult colleagues as predictable archetypes to build clinical emotional distance. You stop taking their actions personally and start managing them like a clinical project. Categorizing these species allows a leader to apply specific tactical maneuvers to neutralize their negative impact. Take the oblivious ostrich. They bury their head in the sand and actively ignore glaring problems. Your strategic antidote? Document and protect. You create an explicit paper trail so when their crisis inevitably explodes, it doesn't land on your desk. Then there's the bumbling buffalo, who charges blindly into projects and breaks carefully laid processes. You manage them by installing strict guardrails and establishing micro-deadlines to rein in the chaos. Got a Teflon tactician who deflects all accountability and never takes the blame? You force public alignment in group settings where they simply cannot hide behind private conversations. And for the jargon juggler who hides their lack of execution behind a wall of corporate buzzwords, you deploy the clarifying pivot. You play dumb and politely force clarity by asking exactly what their jargon means in practical, measurable terms.
Moving right along to Section 3, Dreaded Oblivion Syndrome.
So we are moving into a specific clinical diagnosis of the absolute most frustrating coworkers you will ever encounter in your career. Dreaded Oblivion Syndrome, or DOS, is a condition where individuals are entirely unaware of their own cognitive limitations or the negative impact they have on a team. Paxton essentially calls this the corporate equivalent of the Dunning-Kruger effect on steroids. You simply cannot argue logic with someone who doesn't know what they don't know. They genuinely believe they're absolute rock stars, all while causing total chaos and collateral damage around them. Recognizing when you're dealing with someone who has DOS is absolutely critical because standard management techniques simply will not work on them.
So the crucial point is, how do you actually manage them? You have to tie your goals to their self-interest and make them look good. To manage DOS sufferers effectively, you must strategically frame your ideas so they align perfectly with their personal wins and ego. Stop trying to make them see your brilliant logic and start making your logic look like their inevitable victory. If you need a project completed, frame it as an opportunity for them to shine in front of senior leadership. By aligning what you need with what their ego craves, you bypass their cognitive blind spots entirely and get the results you need for your team.
Which brings us to Section 4, the Strategic Detachment Tactic. Now we are pivoting from diagnosing your colleagues to deploying the ultimate executive tool for safeguarding your reputation and your sanity. And this brilliantly illustrates the core choice you have every single day when dealing with workplace dysfunction. Think about the reactive response, losing your temper, escalating conflict, and becoming an HR problem. The absolute moment you get visibly angry, you lose. You become the problem in the eyes of human resources and upper leadership, totally overshadowing the incompetence you were frustrated by in the first place. Getting angry is a career killer that severely damages your own executive standing. Contrast that with the strategic response: tactical detachment, stealth sarcasm, and polite hyperliteral communication. You kind of have to start treating work like a sitcom simulation to keep your blood pressure low. When someone sends a chaotic email, you don't fire back a furious paragraph. You detach. You respond with hyperliteral, polite brevity, and you maintain your composure. Strategic detachment turns you into the calmest, most unshakable, and ultimately most powerful person in the room.
A massive part of this strategy applies directly to your schedule. Consider this your survival checklist for endless meeting culture, which, let's face it, is where dysfunction usually breeds. Step 1. Guard your calendar aggressively. Step 2. Extract yourself from low-value meetings. And step 3. Force agendas that demand actionable outcomes. Let me tell you why this is absolutely vital for high performers. Incompetence thrives in unstructured meetings because it provides a captive stage for talking without actually doing anything. Talking without doing is the ultimate trap that drains a high performer's productivity. By relentlessly demanding actionable outcomes and specific next steps, you completely remove the oxygen that these dysfunctional behaviors need to survive. You force the room out of the abstract and into strict accountability. Finally, we reach section 5, the exit question. Let's move to and see how this builds. Here, we introduce the final, somewhat controversial boundary that Paxton outlines for high-performing professionals. Is it time to leave? Some might ask if leaving a toxic environment is just a cop-out, a failure to lead through adversity, but others argue it's the most candid, realistic workplace advice ever given. As an executive coach, I tell clients all the time, your career is an asset you have to protect. When you have deployed every tactic, maintained your flawless composure, completely optimized your own reactions, and the environment remains impossibly broken because leadership refuses to change, taking your executive talent elsewhere isn't quitting, it's a highly strategic reassignment of your personal capital to a place where it will actually be valued. This brings up a really fascinating critical debate among readers of the book. Does this approach lack empathy by validating our frustration and labeling behaviors as stupid? Or does it optimistically arm high performers with the exact tools they need to protect their mental health and upward career trajectory? The book argues that true empathy isn't about letting yourself be constantly dragged down by chaos or acting as an unpaid therapist for difficult coworkers. True empathy is about understanding the underlying psychology of the chaos, recognizing with clear eyes when logic has permanently left the building, and establishing firm boundaries. It's about protecting your executive capacity at all costs so you can actually do the job you were hired to do. Which leaves us with this final critical thought. Are you letting other people's nonsense control your day, or are you ready to deploy tactical sanity? It's time to take executive control of your environment. Stop waiting for the corporate madhouse to cure itself. Put these frameworks into practice, maintain your unshakable composure, and turn pure irritation into usable power. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode.